Welcome to the Product Bakery podcast. My name is Christian. I'm Alex, and together we present you the ingredients to build the right products. Great, hello everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. So we would like to give a quick intro on what you can expect from this panel. So first of all, a quick introduction of the Product Bakery podcast and our lovely guest today. And then we will just jump right into the topics and questions that we have prepared about product-led growth. So my name is Christian. I'm a product strategy coach and psychotherapist, and hosting since 2020 the Product Bakery podcast together with Alex Lapunt, who is a VP user experience and brand at a company called Moonfair. Yeah, and to give you some background, in 2020, Alex and I came together after we worked for 2 years together at SumUp as product manager and design lead. We were facing a lot of challenges back then when we worked together. And in order to stay on top of things, we visited a lot of conferences and tried to get new inputs, new experiences, and also exchange knowledge and problems with colleagues. And what we realized back then was that every time I was at a product conference, we were also talking about design. Every time we were at design conferences, people talked about product. Same goes for marketing. And we always came back and realized it would have been so great to have you had with the conference, but it wasn't the case. So the logical next step for us was to start our own conference, which we haven't done, by the way. But the minimum viable product we came up with was to start with an interface, which is our podcast these days, to bring people from different backgrounds together, from different departments and also from different roles, to look at the whole product development process as holistically as possible. And if you think that makes sense, we would love to invite you to scan this QR code and follow us. And we are also always looking for great speakers to share as much product knowledge as possible with the whole world. So, yeah. Alex, that was the introduction and self-promotion. Is there anything I missed?
No, I think I feel honored that I can be here between all these product people with my design backgrounds. And yeah, it's actually also nice. Usually we do a lot of interviews with people on Zoom calls. So it's cool to have a proper panel, have you guys sitting here. And well, it's also my pleasure to quickly introduce you. I had to take down some notes on what you did and what your careers are like, because I think across all of you, there's probably no industry that you haven't worked in. So yeah, starting with Belen, you worked with companies like Bubble and SoundCloud. You're now the VP product at Microverse, which is an online school for remote devs. From what I understood, you only pay when you actually get the job at the end, which is a pretty interesting model compared to a lot of boot camps and stuff that we see out there for devs. Rhiannon, I think over 3 years as CPO for Wend, which is a cloud-based point of sale solution. Now CPO at Clue, menstrual health app, if I understood that correctly. And Mirella, who founded actually Product People. You took a lot of interim positions at companies like Tier, Zalando, and so on. So I think we have a really good experience sitting here with us. As we already started talking about product-led growth, I think I would start with the question of what the key characteristics are for product-led growth strategy. And as you already have the microphone, maybe you can start.
Key characteristics. Is this on? Well, it's lighted, but otherwise I'll speak louder. I could just close my eyes and think about what were you sharing, Adam. And I think some parts that for me at least resonate with applying this in a product in real life, which is a bit different from reading slides from a Reforge course. It needs to be compounding. The big difference between what marketing has been doing over the last decades and product-led growth is that it needs to have a compounding effect. It cannot be a linear mechanic where you get an incremental growth for every one marketing dollar or one step that your user takes. So it's normally about designing this ways in which the output of your loop or of your cycle has to be greater than the input that you're putting in. Otherwise, you just have linear growth. That's marketing. We know how it works. The bigger part for me when understanding how to apply this to companies was that, unlike older marketing strategies, it's not this one-size-fits-all where, you know, we discover a new channel and every company rushes to apply it. I remember working with Prasad at Babel, and 2015, 2017, everyone was crazy about content marketing, so everyone was doing content marketing. There's this one ad with my little photo that still like chases me down the internet. And yeah, and then like diminishing returns, right? Because everyone's doing content marketing and everyone's trying that, and the costs per click go up, and there's nothing to do there. Product-led growth needs to understand what are your company's strengths, what are your shared capabilities. Are you a content creation company like Spotify? Then can you use that to generate those loops? Are you a company? Where does your company add value, and how are you using that to bring people organically? And the most beautiful part that will make marketing die, as that I was saying, I think is the fact that is independent from those economic dynamics. If you were close to marketing teams during the pandemic, you saw that a lot of marketing companies were losing their budgets, and all of a sudden doing marketing became a lot cheaper. And there are moments where you have your strategy perfectly set up, and all of a sudden within a month, Google updates their algorithm, and your budget just goes to the drain because, yeah, the market is just, you're dependent on what the market is going to put as a price, where product-led growth allows you to grow dependent on user behavior. That's the part that might change what's happening with you, but since humans are a lot more predictable than economic markets, then yeah, you're a bit safer there.
Beautiful. I mean, wondering also, Mirella, considering that you're working across a lot of different companies, like, do you see also differences there, or how do you approach making sure to find exactly what is right for the businesses?
Sure. Maybe first starting with the why. Why is it important all of a sudden? First, because VCs switched from growth at all costs to please be profitable, or we shut you down, or we bring someone else in as CPO or CEO. And we've seen this across lots of the clients that we work with, or companies are being sold, acquired by various private equity players, or there are lots of merger and acquisitions happening. And all of a sudden, everything becomes like this can of beans to see how much margin you can make on it. If you are making margin, and else how can you start having it profitable? So I think one of the parts that we try to teach at product people to our employees is that we need to be pragmatic. So it's not just a fad. And going back, Rhiannon had a superb live stream that you can find on YouTube. She says, fall in love with your P&L. And I think that's the more pragmatic part, right? How do you make money? What are the core things? And you said something very valuable, that the business model you have hardens everything you can do with your product. So if you rely on certain things to happen for you to make money, then you can't like do other things. You need to activate that, and you see what product-led growth tactics you can activate that work with your business model, and some may not work. Because otherwise, I love the example of Slack, right, where it's all this bottom-up, but sometimes it's not, right? So there are like a lot of tactics, a lot of things that we see at clients. Everyone wants to do referrals, but in which case do referrals work, right? You can also just lose a lot of money on referrals and get customers that are not your ideal customer profiles, or return after the first order where they put in the coupon and you lost money on that order. That would be more of the background that we'd see. Of course, in B2B, this has become more common, also because there was this migration of the user becoming sometimes the buyer or becoming the influencer. If you think of SaaS tooling like Miro or the Slack example that was given earlier. So that's indeed a trend, and there's a bit more pressure on these SaaS tools to become easier to acquire and buy online, or at least to freemium, to trial, or one of those. But most importantly, we should be aware of the current economic situation that's pushing this pressure on not necessarily only marketing. So I think marketing has still a place. Maybe in this PLG model, it went from being on the top of the funnel into marketing messaging needing to be consistent across the activation, renewal, retention loop, right? So on the R. So that would be more of you can't have just like a landing page with some messaging and then it puts them on a user onboarding funnel that says something completely different and doesn't deliver on the promises. So of course, yeah, that's maybe obvious, even if it's not obvious on how some people do it. Hope that helps. Over to you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Reinhard, you have 8 million active users, and I was just wondering, are there a lot of aha moments that your customers have, or are you still focusing on pushing via marketing channels?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. If you have any problems with my accent, it's because I'm from New Zealand, and if I go too quickly, when I arrived last year in Germany, this whole thing about Germans being very direct, it's not true. Everybody sat in the meetings and smiled and nodded, smiled and nodded. Light feedback that maybe it's not so easy, so please tell me. And actually the point you were making about the power of PLG being that you are marketing disintermediates you, right? Like that's the whole point. It's why it's called media. You are mediated in terms of your attempt to communicate with someone who you're trying to offer a product or a service to. And I have a brilliant example of where this happened to us last year. So Clue is a period tracking app. We have 11 million monthly active users across the world. And we help people manage something that's pretty important for literally half the world's population. In fact, 51% of the world will have periods at some point in their lives. And last year we were doing brilliantly in terms of our optimizing our Google campaigns. We were getting close to that mythical positive unit economics. I had this beautiful slide at the board meeting in the summer, and I was like, yeah, we're nearly there. We're going to pour the money in. The board was excited. I was excited. Google flagged one of our campaigns for inappropriate content. This happens to us all the time. I don't think it's inappropriate to talk about a biological reality that happens to people, but this happens to us regularly. When that happens, they stop all the campaigns. We have to go through it. It happens with Facebook, it happens with Google, it happens with Apple. We then have to go through a whole process. And of course, all of that time and energy and effort that you put into building up that campaign and that optimizing just gets blown out the water, right? And you end up going backwards in terms of unit economics. But when people come into our product, we don't have to deal with somebody else's judgment about whether or not it's appropriate to talk about periods. Like we can talk about it with the user there and then, and so we don't have to constantly be kind of at someone else's mercy. I mean, this is such, when you raised that point, I was like, yes, because we've suffered from that in our business, very much so. For us, in terms of the aha moments, I mean, tracking is our superpower, and people come in. What's super interesting about Clue is that people come in obviously with a very clear purpose in mind, and very interestingly, we see that people who download the app when they have their period are more sticky than people who download it when they don't, which is a fascinating behavioural thing, because we suspect it's because you get instant input, right? Like you put in your data and you instantly see it adapting to you. But there are kind of two types of users in terms of that aha moment. There are some folks who see it and they can put some data in, and they're like tracking is the aha moment, the primary aha moment. But there is a secondary aha moment, which is around accuracy and predictions, and that is that takes a while, right? Like the algorithm itself adapts pretty quickly, but it does take probably 3 months before you get really good predictions and really good data. And women and people with cycles are not stupid. Like they know that, right? They know that they're not going to get an accurate prediction the first, well, they're going to actually get a very accurate prediction, but they know it'll get better. And so they will often say, oh, I downloaded it, I had a look, and I give it a couple of months. They will usually run more than one app at the same time to judge accuracy between the apps and then decide which one works best for them. So there are these kind of 2 stages of aha moments: the tracking and entering some data and seeing the app change, and then giving it a bit more time and seeing does it deliver on the promise. And we see that in the payment behavior as well, right? So there are people who will come and they'll subscribe straight away because they think, I want the premium version, I want all of the things behind the paywall. And then there are others who say, I'm going to wait and see, are you accurate enough? 2 to 4 months, then we see another judgment moment in terms of the PLG funnel, if you like. It's super interesting.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting. And that brings us actually to the next question, because Adam was already talking about the 6 steps that you can do to become more product-led. But Mirela, also from your experience, you're working for many companies, and I believe you have also a lot of insights. And I was just wondering, from your perspective, what do product leads need to do to establish, to become more product-led within companies? And I'm going to give you this microphone because it's louder.
Yes, it's louder. Wow. All right, so we're going to pass this on. I would say start with a product that has already market fit, right? Because maybe people haven't done this before, but it doesn't make sense to optimize or start driving people into something where you haven't discovered product market fit. And then it's a pretty generic question, so I'm going to give a bit of the consultant answer, which it depends, right? I don't know if companies want to dive directly into this or want to trial it out. For example, I've noticed the larger companies trial things out with a few teams. If that works out, then they consider expanding it later. So that could be something done with a product line. Other things that have been successful, if I'm thinking in the B2B model where you'd have a sales team, at some contract value onwards, maybe worth adjusting also the incentives of this sales team, that they still get their bonuses or their provision, even if they don't sell that much. Because at some point, if you have this transition successful, then it's possible that for low value accounts, the funnel and the product take over the selling and upselling, which would then free up sales capacity for focusing on enterprise, if that is the point. For B2C, I would say depends. We keep discussing the aha moments, but also which parts of the onboarding funnel or activation, as well then retention, renewal, referral, can you double down on so that you don't need to pay for ads all the time? For example, at Zalando, I did a maternity cover where the business unit I was in focused on user engagement and retaining them, not selling. So we didn't have conversion to buying something. Our North Star metric was the number of people with 2+ interaction within 7 days. So they came within our premises, which was a mix of Instagram and Pinterest, with also some outfits generated algorithmically. So we looked at how many of these images did people consume within 7 days, and the 2+ was a metric that the whole business unit went to. So we tried maximizing that, right? Getting more of our people to come back, more of them to click, and with that, saving the money you would pay on Instagram and Pinterest to acquire these people to come back when they're bored and looking for fashion inspiration. So I hope I gave a B2B and B2C example with that.
How to apply it to a company?
Yeah, I was just wondering how you do it, especially in your area.
Well, I was thinking more like what it took us to do it at Babbel. Right now, the product I lead has a bit less of those dynamics, but I think it took us I can remember 2019 and starting to talk about this very actively in things inside the company. And for me, 2 main things to make it successful were to educate our leadership. Because the reality of product-led is that you need to change product dynamics for this to work really well. So it worked for Dropbox because a key part of Dropbox activation was that for this product to be valuable, you needed to invite other people in it. So you automatically had this dynamic where I acquire Mirela, and Mirela brings me 3 people. And I'm in this virtuous circle of growing with a much higher return than what I've put in. But that requires changing the product itself. And so it requires aligning with a bunch of different people. And unless people are on board with you on the benefits of what you're doing, it's going to take a lot of explaining, a lot of stakeholder management to actually get people on board on the key changes that you want to do. And yeah, educating leadership specifically, but within the product team is one. And then another big learning from applying specific, let's say, models from Reforge was to actually model these things up front. there are a lot of these changes that are an investment for the product. And normally growth teams come from this marketing mindset of, let me do tactics and hack things and test and trial and convert and put like this price page versus that price page, and here the CTA is orange and here the CTA is purple, and one color must convert more. And this works quickly when you're in a funnel and you can bring a ton of traffic to something, but it is really costly to do product development like that. So for me, the magic tool was to be very judicious about modeling how a product loop would work in theory, and really realize and through numbers confirm, okay, this is the most valuable one. From the 7 ideas that my team has, we're not going to implement the 7, we're going to focus on 2, because these are the ones that actually touch on our product leverages, for example, the points where we actually get a lot of product traffic, this one feature that gets a lot of people in. And so that's the point that I should be maximizing, that I can use as a leverage to grow.
Beautiful. And I mean, maybe because we've also heard like how important it is to work with the stakeholders and to convince them or to somehow get their buy-in. Like how would you say that do you approach this when you talk to, let it be the CMO or the sales organization? Like how do you also advocate for this product-led growth?
Well, can I just put a little pitch here for Mirella's How to Manage Stakeholders presentation? I shared it with my team the other day after you sent it to me again. They were like, this is amazing. We need to do all of this. I mean, we are only product-led growth, right? We're a B2C app, which means that the price point is super low. So there is no CMO and there is no sales org. There's me and the product org. And so this is very...
makes the convincing easier.
Yeah, well, yes, and the changes that we've had to do, so kind of the question around how do we... So Clue has been around for quite a while and is a very strongly mission-led company. Now, I have a very strong belief that you can't fulfill your mission if you can't stand on your own 2 feet. And, I think the kind of macroeconomic situation is of the same view at the moment in quite a harsh way for everyone. And Clue has been moving towards that understanding for quite some time. The first few years of Clue was just kind of like grow, don't even think about it, money will come because we are delivering on this mission for the world, which is a really important mission. And money won't just come unless you're delivering value to people, and you can't live that mission unless you're around and sustainable. So for us, the things that we do in terms of making sure that the product leads are able to drive product-led growth, obviously metrics, and a huge amount of data and a lot of data around where everybody is at in the funnel. But the changes that we've made have been, one, explicitly very commercial, and one explicitly not not in the analytics data, to the point you were making around, like, if you just change the colors of the buttons, it tells you something, but it doesn't tell you a deeper question about why. So, for example, the very explicitly commercial thing is that we've started saying, we have KPI'd the teams on eyeballs on the buy screen, right? Like the more times people see a buy screen, the more likely they are to buy. Clue had always been very, we don't want to tell people that we have a paid product. That might offend them. Yeah, okay, but if we're not there, we don't have their data, then that's going to offend them even more. So maybe we should start looking at how often. And when we started measuring that, we found to my horror, that 45% of MAU hadn't seen a buy screen once in the last year. 45% of people using the product hadn't even seen the buy screen once in a year. Like, come on, I mean, we all use free apps and we're all used to seeing buy screens. It's not offensive, right? So now we have those kinds of KPIs, like, is the buy screen, are people seeing the buy screen and at the right time, and is it working? So that's the explicitly commercial. But the other side of that is that hordes of data will tell you what people are doing, but they won't tell you why. And that why is really important. Like the why are people there with the product? What is the job to be done? Yeah, sure, there's the surface job, track my period, but why? Like, what is the benefit that people need out of that? What is the emotional job that they need to be done? So we've spent a huge amount of time in very in-depth one-on-one conversations with users. We all interview users every week. It's a core commitment in our team. I interview users every week. Everyone, it's something that we do. And we've spent a lot of time exploring what is willingness to pay. Because willingness to pay kind of can show up in the data, but for a product like ours, great, we've got millions of people going through things and we can see when they subscribe or when they don't subscribe and when they churn, but it doesn't really tell us why. It's the willingness to pay mental model that we needed to really get to the bottom of. Fascinatingly, willingness to pay in our space, users have a very consistent mental model across cultures, across geos, across languages. It's really amazing. You know, free is broad and shallow. I should be able to do quite a lot of things to quite a kind of shallow depth. And I'm willing to pay if I want to go really deep and I want something really personalized. Once you have that kind of model, it's really easy to prioritize and figure out, like, okay, we need to do this stuff to drive MAU, and this is where we'll get value, and this is where we'll drive conversion and retention, right? Because they're the same. Retention and conversion are not always the same. In my previous product, fixing retention was not necessarily the same about conversion, but for Clue, they are the same decision, just at two different points in time, right? So that's where we've gone really deep and how we've enabled the team to be really focused on this product-led growth and moving from a mindset of, you know, is it to like, it's the ultimate product market fit. If someone's willing to put some of their hard-earned cash towards something that you're providing, then I feel proud of that. I feel like, wow, I've actually, you know, we've built something that's valuable. So that's been a push that we've done as well.
Beautiful. I mean, just because we're also talking a bit KPIs here, and I mean, I think part of this whole conference is also around AI. So I'm like wondering, is any of you already using AI to collect or analyze the data that you have in your product?
I have a controversial view, so if someone else doesn't, then...
We leave controversial.
I mean, I think it's the cool new toy. And, you know, I don't... I have a real dislike of anything that in product teams that product managers can use to abstract away the hard grind and work of product management. You cannot get anyone else to do the analysis for you. You cannot get someone else to do the communication for you. There is no tool, there is no, cool, maybe AI will do it. People say to me things like, well, you know, we've got all this insight now. We're talking to users all the time. We have hundreds of pages of transcript. We have all this, like, maybe we should run a tool over it and get the concise insights. I'm like, no, maybe you should read that transcript and talk to that user and for yourself internalize what is going on with our users. Because anything, it's this point about mediation again, right? Like anything's abstraction is a layer of abstraction or removal from the user. And product managers should be closer and closer and closer, not further and further away. Like, do the work. This is the work of product, is being really close to what is going on and what the data is. You can't palm that off to someone else or something else. Like, that is the value that product should bring. So, sure, maybe AI can do it, but until my PMs are doing it, like, really beautifully and are smashing it out of the park and, I don't know, then there's a reason for them to, no, not my team, not in the short term.
So they need to earn to be able to use AI.
You can play with AI when you've developed a product-led growth cycle.
I mean, the counter question would have been, why you're not using AI? So actually, we're there.
Yeah. I have a little bit of your view. In fact, I was thinking, I saw your question, because obviously we heard these questions before. And we have seen them. I was actually honestly comfortable to be between two women. And normally you get this like, what is like San Francisco tech bro whose ego is very connected to the valuation of their company, who must have AI as part of their slides. And it's an archetype, and hopefully it's also in decline like the dinosaurs. But you should ask yourself if it really adds value, right? At Microverse, we're a coding academy for developing markets. We are training people in Latin America and in Africa to become developers, because talent is everywhere, but opportunities are not. And we have no purpose for now to find our data like this, but we're finding that we can teach people communication skills and how to behave in a class a lot better through AI tools. Poise, Fathom, all of these tools. I don't know if you've used them, but otherwise, like, I absolutely recommend, because they're really fun products to work with. They hear you through a call, and they give you feedback at the end of the call. And they tell you your tone was too demanding, or your energy was actually helpful. You used too many filler words. And this is a type of feedback that no matter how much we adapt it, we cannot provide on a scalable way to an entire cohort of learners at a user base. And I think that's where AI, machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing is actually going to bring value, rather than shoehorn it on top of your thing.
I got made fun of from my employees for trying to do too many things with ChatGPT 3 when it first got the buzz. There are still some things that worked out. So since we're B2B, we get tons of clients in our funnel that kind of want to do something, but they don't know what they want to do. And the worst fit the client is, the more demanding they are with questions and proposals they want in advance. Have you had that? Okay, you've been in B2B. All right, so if we don't have a lot of overhead position, right? So we've been bootstrapped from the beginning. Even if we're at 40 people, we have currently no salespeople to handle that. So if someone doesn't look like they would want to work with us in a way that we can provide value, then I also start giving them less attention. So it was like one of these cases specifically that kept replying with questions. And at some point I told someone, hey, please send the proposal, but use ChatGPT. And then I saw this email like with it was very verbose email. Of course, we corrected a few things from there. But that was one case where I would have not answered to that prospect anymore. And after 2 months, I think they became like a very low ticket size client. So ChatGPT helped with that specific thing, but they're still not an ideal customer profile. So in a way, it didn't pan out that everyone in that funnel spent time on them yet. Maybe later. And aside from that, I totally agree with parts that you can automate very small interaction and make it more of a sidekick rather than the main thing. And it gives out still a lot of incorrect things, or in some cases, I just personally don't agree with what it proposes. But we did instruct our people to try it out and be familiar with that, because they're going to run into it at clients. And it's better to already be ahead of the client, at least for 5 minutes. Over.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm actually very happy to hear your opinions, because there is a lot of hype around AI, and it's definitely coming and useful for many use cases. But in product, there are still a couple of question marks, I would say. So to wrap that up, we have also had a conversation with Adam recently to talk about product growth in combination with AI, which is our recent podcast episode. So feel free to tune in, and thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.